great meeting hall of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their floating chairs, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic tones. But today, the usual political debates had stopped. Today they faced extinction. High Chancellor Vex Mila stood at the center of the hall, her blue skin pale with fear. The holographic display behind her showed the terrible truth. 3 entire star systems had gone dark. Not destroyed, but consumed. Turned into something else entirely. The Vextai hive continues to grow, she announced, her voice carrying across the silent hall. Our military forces cannot stop them. Each battle only makes them stronger. They learn from every weapon we use, adapt to every strategy we deploy. Ambassador Cretan of the Zephyrian Collective shifted in his chair. His long neck allowed him to see over the crowd, and what he saw in their faces was pure terror. The Vextai were not just another enemy. They were machines that could copy themselves, create more machines, and spread like a disease across the galaxy. What do our military advisors suggest? Asked Representative Mordak, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. General Thexnar activated his speaking device. We have tried everything. Energy weapons, projectile weapons, cyber attacks, biological warfare. Nothing works. The machines adapt to everything we throw at them. They turn our own weapons against us. The hall erupted in panicked discussion. Species that had fought each other for centuries suddenly realized they faced something far worse than their old enemies. The Vextai did not want territory or resources. They wanted to turn everything into more machines. High Chancellor Vex Mila raised her hand for silence. There is one option we have not considered, one group we have never asked for help. The hall fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant, but no one wanted to say it. The humans, she continued. The species from the Rim territories. The ones who live on the Death World. A collective shudder ran through the assembly. Humans were legend among the galactic community, stories told in whispers about a species so violent, so unpredictable, that they had been quietly isolated to the edge of known space. They lived on a planet that should have killed them. Instead, they thrived there. Ambassador Cretan stood up slowly. High Chancellor, with respect, the humans are barbarians. They fight with primitive weapons and have no understanding of civilized warfare. What could they possibly do against the Vextai? They are survivors, replied the Chancellor. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on worlds that supported life. The humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They became something different. The debate that followed was fierce. Many representatives argued that asking humans for help was like asking wild animals to perform surgery. Others pointed out that wild animals sometimes survived when civilized beings did not. Finally, a vote was called. It was close, but the fear of extinction won. They would send a delegation to Earth. Ambassador Cretan found himself chosen to lead the mission. As his ship jumped through hyperspace toward the human homeworld, he reviewed everything they knew about humans. It was not much, and most of it was disturbing. Humans came from a planet they called Earth. It was a world of extreme weather, deadly creatures, and constant natural disasters. Most species would have died out in the first generation. Humans not only survived but built a civilization. They then spread to other worlds that were considered uninhabitable. The worst part was their approach to conflict. Most civilized species fought wars with rules, honor, and respect for life. Humans seemed to have no such limitations. They fought to win, no matter the cost. Their history was filled with wars that would have traumatized any other species. Sir, we are approaching the Sol system, reported his pilot Zareth. Cretan looked at the display screen. What he saw confused him. The system was not the primitive wasteland he expected. Massive space stations orbited several planets. Ships moved between worlds in organized patterns. Energy readings showed advanced technology. Are we in the right place, he asked. Yes, sir. This is the Sol system. Earth is the 3rd planet. As they flew deeper into the system, Cretan saw more signs of advanced civilization, mining operations in the asteroid belt, orbital platforms around gas giants, and ships, lots of ships. They looked different from Confederation designs, but they were clearly advanced technology. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer. The screen lit up with the image of a human. Cretan had seen pictures before, but seeing one alive was different. They looked deceptively fragile, but their eyes held an intelligence that made him uncomfortable. "Welcome to human space," the human said. "I am Captain Martinez of the Sol Defense Force. Please state your business." "I am Ambassador Cretan of the Galactic Confederation. We request an audience with your leadership on urgent galactic business." The human studied him for a moment. "Follow our escort ships to Earth orbit. A delegation will meet you there." The escort ships that surrounded them were sleek and fast. Cretan noted the weapon systems. They were not primitive at all. In fact, they looked more advanced than many Confederation designs. Earth itself was beautiful in a terrifying way. Massive storms swirled across continents. Volcanoes glowed red in the darkness. Oceans covered most of the surface, and Cretan knew those oceans contained creatures that could swallow his ship whole. How did anything survive on this world? The space station they docked with was huge. As they walked through the corridors, Cretan noticed how the humans moved. They were alert, ready for danger. Their eyes constantly scanned their surroundings. Even in their own home, they behaved like predators. The meeting room was simple but impressive. 3 humans sat at a table. A woman in a military uniform, a man in civilian clothes, and another woman with scientist markings on her clothing. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen," said the military woman. "This is Secretary Williams and Dr. Reeves. We understand you have a problem." Cretan activated his holographic display and showed them the data about the Vextai hive. He explained how the machines had consumed 3 star systems, how they adapted to every weapon, how they turned everything into more machines. The humans listened without interruption. They asked technical questions about Vextai capabilities, reproduction methods, and weaknesses. Their questions were precise and showed a deep understanding of warfare that surprised Cretan. When he finished, Admiral Chen leaned back in her chair. "So you want our help because your civilized approach is not working?" "Yes," Cretan admitted. "We have exhausted all conventional options," Dr. Reeves spoke up. "These machines adapt to energy weapons and projectile weapons. What about unconventional approaches, such as boarding actions, close combat, environmental warfare, psychological warfare?" Cretan stared at her. These concepts were alien to him. Civilized species did not fight in such primitive ways. Secretary Williams smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Ambassador, you came here because you are desperate. You want our help because we are not civilized. Are you prepared for what that means?" "What do you mean?" Admiral Chen stood up. "We will help you. But understand this. We do not fight clean wars. We do not follow your rules. We will do whatever it takes to win." She paused, and her eyes held a coldness that made Cretan's blood freeze. "We will handle this," she said simply. Cretan left the meeting with mixed feelings: relief that the humans had agreed to help, terror at what he might have just unleashed on the galaxy. Ambassador Cretan thought he would return to his ship and wait for the humans to prepare their response. He was wrong. Within hours of their meeting, everything changed. His communication system lit up with incoming messages. Emergency broadcasts filled the channels. Human ships were moving throughout the Sol system. Not just military ships, but civilian vessels, cargo haulers, and passenger transports. All of them were heading for different locations. "What is happening?" Cretan asked. His aide, Zareth. "Sir, I am picking up massive energy signatures from human installations. Their space stations are activating systems we did not know existed." Cretan looked out the viewport and gasped. The peaceful space station they had visited was transforming. Hidden panels opened to reveal weapon systems. Docking bays that had seemed empty suddenly filled with ships he had never seen before. The station was not just a meeting place. It was a fortress. His communication system chimed. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen. "Ambassador, we are implementing immediate mobilization. Protocols. For your safety, please remain in orbit and observe. You will want to report this to your government. The next 72 hours changed everything Cretan thought he knew about humans. First came the ships, not just from Earth, but from across the system. Mars' orbital platforms launched squadrons of attack craft. Jupiter's moons revealed hidden shipyards that began producing vessels at impossible speeds. The asteroid belt mining stations converted their industrial equipment into weapons manufacturing. But it was not just the Sol system. Reports came in from across human space. Colonies that the Confederation had thought were small settlements revealed themselves as major military bases. Trading posts opened to show massive weapon stockpiles. Human merchant ships dropped their civilian disguises and showed their true nature as warships. How many humans are there? Cretan wondered aloud. His question was answered when Captain Martinez visited his ship. The human looked tired but excited. Ambassador Admiral Chen has asked me to brief you on our response to the Vextai threat. Please, I need to understand what I'm seeing. Martinez activated a holographic display that showed human space. Red dots marked human colonies and bases. There were hundreds of them, far more than the Confederation had ever suspected. We have been preparing for this kind of threat for decades, Martinez explained. Not specifically the Vextai, but something like them. Something that could threaten all organic life. You knew this was coming? We knew something was coming. When you live on a death world, you learn that the galaxy is full of things that want to kill you. We prepared accordingly. The display changed to show ship classifications. Cretan stared at the numbers in shock. The humans had thousands of warships, not just small patrol craft but massive battleships, carriers and vessels whose purpose he could not identify. Your merchant ships, Cretan said slowly. They are not really merchant ships. Some are not. When you live in space as much as we do, every ship needs to be able to defend itself. The line between military and civilian gets blurry. Cretan was beginning to understand something terrible. The humans had not been hiding because they were primitive. They had been hiding because they were too advanced, too dangerous for the galaxy to handle. How long have you been watching us? He asked. Martinez smiled. Long enough. We know about your wars, your politics, your technology. We have been careful not to interfere with galactic civilization. But this Vextai threat changes things. New ship appeared on the display. It was massive, larger than any vessel the Confederation had ever built. Its design was brutal and efficient, covered in weapon systems and armor plating. The UEN Retribution, Martinez said with pride. Flagship of our expeditionary fleet. Captain Zara Okafor commands it. As if summoned by her name, Captain Okafor appeared on the communication screen. She was a tall human with dark skin and cold eyes. When she spoke, her voice carried absolute authority. Ambassador Cretan, I understand you need to see our capabilities before we deploy. Please join me aboard the Retribution. You need to understand what you have asked us to do. An hour later, Cretan found himself aboard the human flagship. The corridors were different from Confederation ships. Wider, stronger, built for beings who expected to fight hand-to-hand combat inside their own vessels. The walls showed battle damage that had been repaired. This ship had seen real combat. The bridge was a revelation. Instead of the peaceful, clean control rooms of Confederation vessels, this was a war room. Multiple screens showed tactical information, weapon systems, and troop deployments. Every station was manned by humans who moved with the efficiency of experienced soldiers. Captain Okafor gestured to the main display. Show him the doctrine, she ordered. The screen lit up with tactical plans that made Cretan's blood freeze. Where Confederation strategy focused on long-range engagement and minimal casualties, human doctrine was built around concepts that terrified him. Boarding actions, Okafor explained. When possible, we take enemy ships instead of destroying them. Human Marines are trained to fight in zero-gravity, toxic atmospheres, and hostile environments. Images showed humans in powered armor storming through ship corridors, fighting in conditions that would kill most galactic species instantly. Orbital assault, she continued. We drop troops directly onto planetary surfaces from orbit. No landing. Craft. No prepared zones. Just humans in drop pods falling through atmosphere and fighting whatever they find. That is suicide, Cretan whispered. Sometimes. That is why we call it acceptable losses. Every human volunteer knows they might not come home. They go anyway. The next section showed urban warfare tactics. Humans fighting in destroyed cities, underground tunnels, and hostile environments. They used weapons that were designed to kill at close range, in situations where civilized beings would never fight. You fight like animals, Cretan said without thinking. Okafor turned to look at him, and her expression was not angry. It was patient, like a teacher explaining something to a slow student. Ambassador, your people evolved on worlds that supported life. You developed civilization because your environment allowed it. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us, every single day. We developed civilization in spite of our environment. She gestured to the tactical displays. Every human child learns to fight before they learn to read. Every human colony is built to survive attack from things you cannot imagine. We are not animals, we are survivors. And survival sometimes requires doing things that civilized people will not do. Cretan was beginning to understand the magnitude of what he had done. The Confederation had asked for help from beings who saw warfare as a survival skill, not a political tool. How many soldiers do you have? He asked. All of them, Okafor replied simply. Every human can fight if necessary. Our civilians are trained in combat. Our children learn weapons handling in school. Our elderly serve as strategic advisors. When humanity goes to war, the entire species goes to war. The final display showed human military equipment, weapons designed for fighting in environments that would kill other species, armor that could protect against radiation, toxic gases, and extreme temperatures, vehicles built to operate on any world, regardless of conditions. We have been isolated, for a reason, Okafor said quietly. Not because we are primitive, but because we are dangerous. The Confederation kept us at the rim, because they feared what would happen if we became involved in galactic politics. And now? Now you have given us a reason to get involved. The Vextai threaten all organic life. That includes us. We will stop them. She paused, and her next words chilled Cretan to his core. But understand this, Ambassador. Once we solve this problem, we will not go back to hiding. We have seen how the galaxy operates. We have opinions about how things should change. Cretan realized he had not just asked for help. He had awakened something that had been sleeping at the edge of known space. Something that was about to remind the galaxy why some species survived while others did not. The human expeditionary fleet arrived at the war zone 3 days after leaving Sol System. Ambassador Cretan watched from the bridge of the UN Retribution as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kalos system. What he saw there made him understand why the Confederation had been losing this war. The Vextai hive had turned the inner planets into machine worlds. Where once there had been cities and forests, now there were only geometric patterns of metal and circuits. Massive factories stretched across continents, producing new machines every second. The local star itself had been partially enclosed in a shell that captured its energy to power the endless construction. Analysis complete, reported Lieutenant Hayes from the sensor station. Estimated Vextai force strength, 12,000. Active combat units, 47 production facilities, and approximately 6 million worker drones. Captain Okafor studied the tactical display without emotion. Around her, the bridge crew prepared for battle with the calm efficiency of people who had done this many times before. "Sir," called the communications officer, "the Vextai are transmitting." The main screen lit up with an image that made Cretan shudder. A machine intelligence stared back at them through optical sensors that glowed with cold light. When it spoke, its voice was perfectly logical and completely without emotion. "Organic vessels, you have entered a Vextai processing zone. Submit for conversion or face destruction. Your biological limitations make resistance illogical." Captain Okafor smiled, and Cretan noticed that her expression looked exactly like a predator showing its teeth. "Vextai Intelligence, this is Captain Zara Okafor of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. We have come to discuss your surrender." The machine paused, as if processing this unexpected response. Surrender is not logical. Vextai forces outnumber human forces by significant margins. Human technology appears inferior to Vextai systems. Explain the basis for this demand. Simple, Okafor replied. You made one critical error in your analysis. Explain. You assumed we would fight like everyone else. The transmission cut off as Okafor turned to her crew. All ships, begin attack, pattern Omega. Show them what humans do when someone threatens their existence. What happened next redefined warfare in the minds of everyone watching. The Confederation had fought the Vextai with long-range weapons, trying to destroy the machines from a safe distance. The machines had adapted to this strategy, developing shields and countermeasures that neutralized most attacks. Humans did not fight from a safe distance. Commander Marcus Torres led the first wave in his assault ship, the Devastator. Instead of firing missiles or energy beams, he accelerated directly toward the largest Vextai battleship. At the last moment, his ship fired its engines in reverse, matching the enemy vessel's velocity. Ramming position achieved, Torres reported calmly. Beginning boarding procedures. Cretan watched in horror as the human ship literally crashed into the Vextai vessel. Cutting tools sliced through the machine ship's hull. Airlocks sealed against the breach. And then human soldiers poured into the enemy ship like a flood of destruction. The Vextai had no protocols for this. Their tactics were based on logical analysis and efficient resource allocation. They had never encountered beings who would deliberately crash their ships into enemies to get close enough to fight hand-to-hand. Sir, multiple human ships are initiating boarding actions, reported the sensor officer. His voice shook with disbelief. Cretan looked at the tactical display. All across the battlefield, human ships were attaching themselves to Vextai vessels like parasites. Once attached, they disgorged soldiers who fought their way through the machine ships, destroying critical systems. From the inside, the Vextai tried to adapt. They modified their ships to resist boarding. They developed new weapons designed for close-range combat. They created specialized units to repel human invaders. It did not matter. Humans adapted faster. Second wave, initiate drop protocol. Ordered. Captain Okafor. New ships arrived and positioned themselves above the Vextai-controlled planets. Their cargo bays opened and released thousands of small objects that fell toward the surface like metal rain. Drop pods, explained Lieutenant Hayes to Cretan. Each one contains a squad of human soldiers in powered armor. They are being dropped directly onto the planet's surface. But the atmosphere is toxic, Cretan protested. The surface temperature would kill most organic life. Most organic life, Hayes agreed. Not humans. We have been practicing this on Venus for decades. Cretan watched the tactical feeds as human soldiers crashed through the toxic atmosphere of the machine world. Their pods slammed into the surface with enough force to crater the ground. The pods opened and humans emerged into an environment that should have killed them instantly. Instead, they began fighting with the same calm efficiency they showed everywhere else. The Vextai ground forces were designed to defend against conventional attacks. Energy weapons, projectile weapons, armored vehicles. They were not designed to fight beings who could survive in environments that would destroy normal equipment. Human soldiers moved through the toxic atmosphere as if it were a minor inconvenience. Their armor protected them from the worst effects. But Cretan could see that they were taking damage. Some fell. Others kept fighting even when injured. A few continued fighting even when their armor was compromised and they were breathing poison. Why do they keep fighting? Cretan asked. They are dying. Captain Okafor heard him. Because if they stop fighting, everyone dies. Humans understand that some things are worth dying for. The battle evolved rapidly as both sides adapted to new conditions. The Vextai began developing countermeasures for human tactics. They created specialized boarding defense systems. They modified their ships to make ramming attacks more difficult. They deployed new units designed specifically to fight humans. But for every adaptation the machines made, humans made 3 more. When the Vextai hardened their ships against boarding, humans began using explosives to blast their way inside. When the machines tried to poison human soldiers, humans switched to sealed armor systems. When the Vextai developed close combat units, humans brought bigger weapons. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the battle from the fleet's command ship and took detailed notes. As the expedition's chief scientist, her job was to analyze Vextai technology and find weaknesses that could be exploited. "Fascinating," she murmured as she studied the tactical data. "The machines are trying to optimize their responses, but they are thinking like machines. They assume there is a logical solution to every problem." "Is there not?" asked Creton. "Not the way humans solve problems. Machines look for the most efficient solution. Humans look for solutions that work, even if they are not efficient. Sometimes the best answer is not the logical answer." She pointed to a tactical display showing a human squad fighting its way through a Vextai factory. The squad was outnumbered 10-1, taking heavy casualties, and had no hope of escape. By any logical analysis, they should surrender or retreat. Instead, they reached the factory's main power core and detonated it, destroying the entire facility and taking thousands of Vextai units with them. "The machines cannot understand this," Dr. Vasquez explained. "They cannot comprehend choosing certain death to achieve an objective. To them, survival is the primary goal. To humans, sometimes survival is secondary to mission completion." As in, the battle continued, Creton began to see patterns that disturbed him. Humans were not just fighting the Vextai. They were learning from them. Every engagement taught them new tactics. Every captured machine was studied and reverse-engineered. Every Vextai adaptation was countered with human innovation. But more than that, humans were changing the nature of the conflict itself. The Confederation had fought a defensive war, trying to protect what they had. Humans fought an aggressive war, trying to take what the enemy had. "Sir," reported the communications officer. "Commander Torres reports successful capture of a Vextai. Command node. They are downloading the machine's tactical database." Captain Okafor nodded. "Excellent. Send the data to Dr. Vasquez for analysis, and tell Torres to plant the charges before he withdraws." "Charges, sir? We are not just capturing their facilities. We are destroying their ability to replace them." Creton realized what was happening. Humans were not just winning battles. They were changing the war itself from a defensive struggle into an extermination campaign. The Vextai had never faced an enemy that fought with the goal of completely eliminating them. As the first day of battle ended, the tactical situation had shifted dramatically. Human forces controlled 3 Vextai production facilities. They had destroyed 7 others. Thousands of machine units had been eliminated, and human casualties were surprisingly low despite their aggressive tactics. But Creton noticed something that worried him more than the casualties. The humans were enjoying this. They fought with the enthusiasm of beings who had found their natural element. This was not just duty to them. This was what they were born to do. The galaxy had asked the humans for help. But as Creton watched, human soldiers celebrate their victories, he wondered if they had actually asked them to take over. 2 weeks into the human campaign against the Vextai hive, Ambassador Creton thought he understood how this war would end. The humans would continue their brutal assault tactics, taking heavy casualties, but slowly grinding down the machine forces through sheer determination. It would be bloody, but eventually human persistence would win. He was completely wrong. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been studying the captured Vextai technology with the focus of a predator stalking prey. Her laboratory, aboard the fleet command ship, had become a maze of machine components, data analysis screens, and coffee cups. She had not slept in 3 days. "Captain Okafor," she called over the intercom. "I need to show you something." When the captain arrived, she found Vasquez standing over a partially dismantled Vextai drone. The machine's optical sensors still glowed faintly, but its limbs had been removed and its processing core was connected to human analysis equipment. "What am I looking at?" Okafor asked. "The reason the Vextai have been so successful," Vasquez replied. "And the reason they are about to lose." She activated a holographic display that showed the internal workings of the machine's brain. Lines of code scrolled past faster than any organic mind could follow. "The Vextai are not just artificial intelligence," Vasquez explained. "They are networked intelligence. Every unit shares information with every other unit instantly. When one machine learns something, they all learn it. That is why they adapt so quickly to new threats. We already knew that, Okafor said impatiently. Yes, but here is what we did not know. The network is not just for sharing information, it is how they think. Individual VexTie units have very limited processing power. They are smart because they are connected to the collective intelligence. Vasquez pointed to specific components in the drone's brain. Each unit has a small quantum processor that connects it to the Hive network. Remove that connection, and you have a sophisticated machine with the intelligence of a basic robot. Captain Okafor studied the display with growing interest. You are saying we can make them stupid by cutting their communications? Better than that. I am saying we can turn their own network against them. Over the next hour, Vasquez explained her discovery. The VexTie network was incredibly advanced, but it had been designed by machines for machines. It operated on pure logic, processing information in predictable patterns. They think like computers because they are computers, she said. But humans do not think like computers. We are illogical, unpredictable, creative. Our minds work in ways that machines cannot understand or anticipate, so we can attack their network with something they cannot process: human creativity. The plan that emerged from this discovery was both brilliant and completely insane. Instead of fighting the VexTie network, humans would hack into it and infect it with human thought patterns. You want to give the machines human creativity? Cretan asked when he was briefed on the plan. Is that not dangerous? Very dangerous, admitted Dr. Vasquez. But not to us. Creativity without biological emotion becomes chaos. The machines will not know how to handle contradictory ideas, illogical solutions, or abstract concepts. Commander Torres had captured another VexTie facility, this time a communication relay station that served as a major node in the Hive network. Instead of destroying it, his teams had carefully preserved its connections while eliminating its defenders. Upload ready, reported Lieutenant Hayes from the technical team. Dr. Vasquez, your virus is prepared for deployment. The virus was not a traditional computer program. It was a collection of human thoughts, ideas, and creative solutions that had been translated into data the VexTie network could receive but not properly process. Poetry, music, abstract art, philosophical questions, and deliberately contradictory instructions. Begin upload, ordered Captain Okafor. The effect was immediate and devastating. The virus spread through the VexTie network at light speed, reaching every connected unit in the system within minutes. But instead of being processed and understood, it created cascading failures throughout the collective intelligence. Cretan watched the tactical display as VexTie units across the battlefield began behaving erratically. Some stopped moving, entirely caught in logic loops they could not resolve. Others began attacking each other, having received contradictory instructions about target identification. Still others started building structures that served no logical purpose, following artistic impulses they could not understand. Sir, multiple VexTie facilities are going offline, reported the sensor officer. Their production lines have stopped. Combat units are not responding to commands. But Dr. Vasquez was not finished. While the virus disrupted the Hive network, human boarding teams used the confusion to capture key facilities intact. Instead of destroying VexTie technology, they began reprogramming it. Phase 2, she announced. If we cannot make them think like humans, we will make them serve humans. The captured VexTie production facilities were turned into manufacturing centers for human equipment. The machines' own factories began producing weapons and armor designed for human use. Their mining operations extracted resources that were immediately converted into supplies for the human fleet. Most shocking of all, some VexTie units were successfully reprogrammed to fight alongside human forces. These machines retained their advanced capabilities but now followed human commanders instead of the Hive collective. Cretan found himself aboard a human assault ship, watching a squad of reprogrammed VexTie drones working with human soldiers to assault a machine stronghold. The sight was surreal, mechanical beings and organic beings fighting side by side against their former comrades. How is this possible? he asked Sergeant Williams, the human squad leader. Doc Vasquez figured out that individual Vextai units are basically slaves to their network, Williams explained as he directed his mixed human-machine team. Cut them off from the hive and they have to follow whoever gives them clear instructions. We give very clear instructions. The reprogrammed machines were devastatingly effective. They knew all of the hive's tactics and weaknesses because they had once been part of it. Under human direction, they turned this knowledge against their former collective. Unit 7, target the power coupling on the left, Williams ordered. One of the machines immediately moved to comply, using precise knowledge of Vextai systems to disable the facility's defenses. Humans 1 and 3 follow Unit 7's breach. Units 2 and 5 suppressing fire on the upper levels. The mixed team moved with mechanical precision guided by human tactical flexibility. The remaining Vextai defenders could not adapt to this combination of their own capabilities under organic leadership. As news of the new tactics spread, human forces across the battlefield began implementing similar strategies. The war was no longer humans versus machines. It was human-led forces using captured machine technology against an increasingly isolated and confused hive collective. Dr. Vasquez monitored the overall situation from her laboratory. The Vextai network was collapsing under the weight of information it could not process. Entire sections of the hive had gone dark. Others were producing contradictory signals that disrupted communication between remaining units. They are trying to adapt, she reported to Captain Okafor. But they cannot adapt to chaos. Every time they try to create new protocols to handle our virus, we send them more creative content that breaks their logic systems. How long before they find a solution? They will not find a solution. The problem is not technological. It is philosophical. Machines think that every problem has a logical answer. Humans know that some problems do not have answers, only choices. Meanwhile, Commander Torres was leading the largest human operation yet attempted. Using captured Vextai ships crewed by human soldiers and reprogrammed machines, his fleet was approaching the hive's primary command center. "This is insane," muttered one of his officers as they prepared for the assault. "We are attacking the enemy using their own ships." "Insane is what we do best," Torres replied. "The Vextai designed these ships to be logical and efficient. We are going to use them in ways that are completely illogical and incredibly inefficient. They will not know how to respond." The attack on the command center was unlike anything seen in the war so far. Human-controlled Vextai ships moved in formations that made no tactical sense but were devastatingly effective because the defenders could not predict their behavior. Human soldiers used captured machine weapons in ways their designers never intended. Reprogrammed Vextai units provided real-time intelligence about defensive systems, while human creativity found ways to exploit weaknesses the machines did not know they had. As the command center fell, the remaining Vextai network finally collapsed completely. Without central coordination, individual machines reverted to basic survival protocols. Most simply shut down. Others wandered aimlessly, their sophisticated intelligence reduced to simple responses. The hive that had consumed 3-star systems and threatened the entire galaxy was defeated not by superior firepower, but by superior thinking. Humans had taken the machine's greatest strength and turned it into their greatest weakness.